Hi, I'm Mark with Proline Range Hoods, and today we're going to talk about some of the key things that you need to consider as you plan for your new range hood. Now, most people in their life only install one or two range hoods, so don't feel overwhelmed. There's some easy things you can do to plan for this and to pick the right model and to make installation of your range hood the easiest thing you can do. So in planning for your new cooking space, you need to consider a couple of things. What will be your cook surface type? Will it be gas? Will it be electric? And then what will be your output requirements? So generally, in the planning stage, if you can, my recommendation that covers 90% of the applications is use an 8-inch to a 10-inch duct and get it up in the approximate space where you're going to need to connect it to either an island hood or a wall hood or a custom ventilation option that you may have. After you've received the hood and inspected the hood, you plug it in to make sure that all of the functions work and you've visually inspected the hood so that there's no damage. Then we're on to the installation, and that's not hard at all. So one of the first things that we're going to do is identify exactly where we need to mount the hood, and we do that by identifying the corners of our cooking surface. So this is in an island application. If this were a wall-mounted application, it would be different. But with the island application, because it's going to be in the ceiling, we want to identify the four corners of the cooking surface so that we can match those up to the four corners of our range hood, and then that will help us locate where the mounting bracket needs to be. Now, to do this, you have a lot of options. You can use a laser, you can use a level, you can use a plumb line, but one of the fastest ways that I've found to do it is by simply putting the range hood exactly where it's going to sit over your cooktop, physically on the cooktop. So grab some blankets, grab some foam, some cardboard, something so that you won't have scratches on your cooking surface or on your range hood. And then on the range hood, remove any loose parts. So we're going to remove the filters, we're going to remove the grease cups, anything that might fall out. So once we've done that, we're going to lay it on the surface, and then we're going to use the level to transfer the corners of the range to the ceiling and identify exactly where we need to mount our mounting bracket. So in this case, we found a couple of pieces of foam from the island packing. So now that we have our range hood positioned over the range, exactly where it's going to go, we need to transfer the measurements from here up to the top so that we know where to mount our bracket. So for this, I'm just using a 4-foot level. I'm going to take the measurement from the bottom and I'm going to look for a plumb measurement straight up. Now I just want, really what's important, I'm going to get this measurement, but then you have to remember you also need to get this one. So that's why I said a laser would be really nice right about now. Now a plumb line, you need a perfectly plumb line. So you need to make sure that wherever you start, you're perfectly centered here and here. In this case, what we're going to do is we're going to locate this line on the ceiling, and then we're going to locate this other line on the ceiling, and then we'll locate the front line. So as you use a level like this, we will not be too worried about this direction moving towards the camera and away from the camera. We're more worried about this direction. Now we'll do the front. Then we'll do this side. Now because this is at a little angle on here, we're going to put it in front because we need the measurement that would be at the bottom. So we have located our front line, and then we have our left line. So one of the reasons that we chose this model is because it can be a little bit challenging. The reason it can be challenging in determining the chimney height is we have a small main hood height, then we have this blower box height to consider. So what you need to consider is your total height down from the ceiling. So our standard cooktop is at 36 inches. We have 60 inches here. So in this environment, we have exactly an 8-foot ceiling. If we want to mount 30 inches off of the cooktop, we need this surface of the range hood at 30 inches off the cooktop, or at 66 inches off the floor. So if we're 66 inches off the floor, then we're at 96 inches of total range hood height. So that means we have 30 inches of total range hood height. That means this total length from here to here needs to be 30 inches minus this face. So this face is 4 3/4, so we need to be at 25 or 26 1/4 in total height from here. So now we need to look at the mounting brackets, we need to look at the chimney sections to decide if we can make those work. So our normal chimney will be here. Your vents will be on the side, and you have the adjustable chimney that allows you to do the installation and adjust it to the height that you want. But you also need to remember that you're going to need to have it down. You'll have the chimney down to access this portion of the installation, and then you'll need to raise both of them up to access the lower portion, which is actually not all the way down on the surface here, it's mid-level. So we need a chimney that's about half this height. So in this case, we need to custom cut this. So here are our basic numbers. We have 96 inches total height. The space off of the cooktop we want is 30 inches. So our total height to the bottom of the cooking, or the bottom of the range hood, and our total height from the floor is 66 inches. So this needs to be 30 inches total. We've said that this is 4 3/4. So that means that 30 inches minus 4 3/4 is going to give us 25 1/4. So that means that each chimney needs to be about 13 inches. 13 times 2 would give us 26 inches with an amount of overlap. So we need to see if 13 inches will still give us enough room off of the top of the blower box to access and connect the ductwork. So this bottom area is exactly 13 inches. So if your chimney comes and it's exactly the right height and exactly what you need, then skip forward to the installation part. If not, then stay tuned. We're going to show you how to cut this really quick. So in this case, because we're doing a custom cut, we can decide whether or not we want to keep these vents. And if we don't want these vents, if we want to cut these off, then we do have to re-drill the mounting holes on the side, the upper mounting holes. But one of the easiest ways to mark for your custom cut is to use the outer chimney. So I just pull it out until about 13 inches is revealed, which you can see this is 13 inches roughly. And we can be a little bit over, it's not a big deal because that's the overlap. In the true spirit of DIY, what we need to do, the challenge that we're faced with here, is we need to cut this chimney, but we also need to protect it while we're cutting it so that we don't scratch it. One of the best things about stainless steel is the beautiful finish, but we want to make sure that it stays that way. So this is the side that we're going to need, and this is the side that we're going to need. So we're going to wrap this in paper up to our measurement line so that we can cut away what we don't need and keep this protected. Okay, so we've determined our length. We need 13 inches. We've got it marked on each of the chimney sections. What we've also done is we've gone back and wrapped these sections in paper and tape to protect them. Now when you go to cut these stainless steel chimneys, you're going to use a blade like this. It's just a 1 millimeter abrasive blade, 5-inch, and a regular 4.5 or 5-inch grinder. And this leaves an abrasive powder, almost like a sawdust, as this blade wears down. And so you want to make sure that you protect these sleeves from that dust. This is our outside sleeve. So if we mark this, this one needs to be perfect. So this edge needs to be perfect. Now we do have a cutting area, but we're trying to make this as realistic as possible, and this is the type of environment you'd be at home. At home, on your driveway, outside. Okay, we're back. We've cut the chimneys. They're still wrapped. We've calculated the length. We've also calculated that we don't need to cut the mounting brackets, the brackets that connect the ceiling bracket to the chimney or to the range hood itself. So now what we're going to do is we will mount the chimney bracket. We'll need to position it, and we'll drill some holes just randomly here to temporarily mount it, just attach it to the sheetrock so we know that we have it exactly where we need it to be. Then we'll go back, and once we've reinforced the ceiling where we know it's perfect, then we'll go back and we'll drill the permanent fasteners. Now to do that, just a 3/16 drill bit, small drill bit, you're going to drill maybe 4 or 5 holes. So then we're just going to use some sheetrock screws to tighten it up. Now, as you'll recall, we marked the front line of the bracket, and we also marked the right side. So we have a line in a corner, which is all we need to mount the rest of the bracket. Okay, so now we think we have it mounted in the right spot. We'll just double check. So we measured it, we leveled it up, and we got it right the first time. That's no joke, first take. Well, it took me 3 times to mount the bracket, but, so once we make the cut, we'll feel around up there and figure out the angle and the length of a blocking that we need to make to put it in to support the hood. So now we're going to cut out this section, and this part of the dust right here is unavoidable, so we've removed the range hood. You'll cover it up and clean it up with a vacuum. Now what I want to do is start in the center and then work out, because I don't know where the studs are. First time, isn't that how it goes? Runs right through the middle. So if we've hit a stud here, I know that the framing runs this way, so I'm going to try and identify where it's at. If in our planning stage we have the vent, the 6 or 8 inch vent is going to be either in this run or this run. So what we wind up with here is having to block this in and then cut out this joist to get to it. So for the purposes of this, we're going to decide that it's in the one on the left. So we're going to need to take our ductwork up and shift it over to the left. Now normally, if there wasn't a stud right here in the middle, you could make the cut here and probably leave the bracket in place, but because we have a stud in the middle, we're going to mark the bracket, take it down, that way we have the whole area to work in. So the next thing we need to do is just figure out what the centering of the studs are in the ceiling. So I'll jump up there, measure that. So my distance in between is 14.5 here, 14.5 here. So we're on 16 centers. We're going to put the blocking in right here, and we're going to put the other blocking in here, because in our scenario, the ductwork would come from here on this side. But if your ductwork is coming from the other side and you need this open, then you put your blocking here and here. Now we are going to have to cut up into this to make room for the 6-inch elbow to turn over and be in place where it needs to be. This way. Perfect. That's perfect. So now from here, it's pretty quick. This is our front, and this is our back, and we want to just make sure we have our holes in the right spot, so we line it up with our old excuse me, we line it up with our old markings, and I need to drill some more holes. So we'll line it up with our original pencil line. We got the holes in the right spot, and we're going straight into blocking. So now we have the ceiling bracket installed. We need to set our corner brackets to length. So the overall hood height is 30 inches. That's total height of the hood. The front of the hood is about 5 inches. This can mount on the side of the hood, and I have a lot of room there to move. The single bracket is 19 5/8, and we need about 24 inches. That's 5 inches. The height of the motor box is about 12 inches, so that means we'd be up about 4 to 5 inches on the outside. We'll go ahead and use the brackets just for stability, because having two brackets pinched together and running the full length of the blower box with the weight, once you turn it on for vibration, everything else is going to be a little bit better. But you could use a single bracket and lock it down really tight, and I think it'd be fine. So we just need to take some of the screws, some of the hardware from the hardware pack. We'll make this at 24 inches, and then we will mount them to the ceiling. So to fasten these two together, I only used 3 of the fasteners. It comes with enough, I believe, to use 6 to 8 on each side. I don't want to put any fasteners down here, because this is where it will connect to the range hood body, to the blower box that extends up into the chimney. Those will be regular fasteners. One of the reasons that I only put 3 in here is this one will connect to the top, this will connect down, and we have a single bracket that will attach to the hood body about right here. To attach the upper bracket, you'll use the small self-tapping screws that will screw directly through the angle bracket and into the ceiling bracket. Now for this application, we've chosen to use flex duct, because the way that this joint has to articulate, it has to go over and then it has to go down. So our vent goes out this way, and we need to attach to it, and then we have to go over under the joist, and then we have to come straight down. Now, the obvious benefit of flex duct is that it's flexible and that it can articulate in a lot of different ways, and it makes it a little bit easier than rigid. The downside is that, as you can see, I don't know if you can see this, but if you extend it fully, it makes the opening about an inch bigger, about a ½ inch bigger, so you get more airflow. So on your highest speeds, you might get some disturbance in the airflow, But the other problem is that in some applications, if you try and, we have customers who try and pinch it, you know, through, which it's very flexible, so you can pinch it, but you actually reduce the airflow. So be careful with that. That's one of the reasons why I cut the opening a lot wider, was so that we didn't pinch the airflow. And one of the most important things in range hood ventilation is resistance. And the more resistance you have on the top end of the motor, the less CFM it can pull through the range hood. And so this will work fine for our application because of the speed doesn't exceed 600 CFM. So 6 inches is fine. Now you'll also notice that we have, for this application, we've just hung down a power cord. You'll need regular 110 volts, 15 amps for any range hood. And you don't really want to put a GFI in here because you can see how difficult it would be to get to the GFI. So if you're going to have a GFI on this, have it at the circuit box, have it at the circuit breaker or at the box, or where it plugs in the crawl space. Still makes it difficult. Like I said, you don't need a GFI on a range hood. So now the moment of truth on our chimneys. See how well we got the cut. So the grain, and that looks fantastic. I'm really happy with how that turned out. We have a little tiny bit of discoloration along the edge. So what you can do is just barely fold the sandpaper over and only run one way. So all we're doing is just barely touching the edge right there. And as you screw this in, you want to be really careful. You only want to screw it in until the screw grabs, because all you're doing is trying to hold it up. So now we're going to take our perfectly cut edge and hide it forever. So then once I get this done, we slide it up and tape it in place so that it stays out of our way. We connect the base unit, we plug it in, we connect up our ductwork, and then we slide this back down into place and we are good. Okay, so we've got the chimneys, the chimney sections, both chimney sections, the first one installed, the second one taped up so it's out of the way. Now it's starting to come together. You can see where we need to bolt the hood to the body. What I'm going to do, this is where it's important to have a friend, so you'll need somebody to help you hold it in place while you screw the brackets into the body of the hood. But really, this is the only part where you will need help. So what I'm going to do, the reason I have these in my hand is because the hood is heavy. I want to just get it in place, so I'll stick these in the hole to pin it really fast, kind of all the way around. They're not permanent, but you'll see me use these big black screws. I just use them as pins. There you go. So we're going to go up to the very last pin right there. Now this is the moment of truth. We wanted 30 inches from the cooktop. Which is here. We are at 29 3/4. Now, like I mentioned before, this is where it makes it easier to understand. Remember, this bracket is the upper bracket that attaches directly to the ceiling bracket. So we have that stability of a single bracket. So you can put in as many screws as you want to make sure that it holds and doesn't vibrate. So now we'll carefully remove the tape. Make sure that you prepare for this to slide down. When you first get your hood, by the way, it is on fan speed 1. When you first get your hood, you'll take it out of the box, you'll plug it in, you'll test it just to make sure there's no shipping damage. Now, as you clean your range hood, you always want to clean with the grain. So the grain runs this way. You don't want to scrub. So in this case, the grain runs this way. So there you have it. This is our PLFI 755. It's a 30-inch model packaged with our 30-inch range. It's a great look. It's a great package. Clean lines, sleek, and hopefully this gives you an idea of how you would install your range hood. You can pick up some tips, some tricks. If you have any comments, leave them in the notes below. And one of the things that we ran into, among other things, we had some specific difficulties that a homeowner would have also. We didn't have the right support, so we had to cut out a little bit of the framing. We didn't have the supports where we need it, so we had to add that. We also had to cut the chimney down, which, as I was planning, I thought, okay, this is the line that needs to be perfect. But as it works out, we have a slight recess, so this fits down inside. So we put my cut line down here. So this is the manufacturer's machined edge, and then the other cut on the other chimney is inside, so it's completely hidden. So one of the good things about this model. So there you have it. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Subscribe and like. Thank you.